Jai Mahamaya Ki Jai. In our last discourse, we heard about King Sabahu praising the Divine Mother and asking her to always be present in his kingdom of Benares, and King Sudarsana returning to Ayodhya, to his kingdom. And we'll continue in chapter 25. So Vedavyasa said, the king Sudarsana, surrounded by his friends, on coming to the palace at Ayodhya, bowed down to Leelavati, the mother of Shatrijit, and said, O mother, I swear by touching your feet that I have not killed in battle your son Shatrijit, nor your father Yudhishthira. It is the Devi Durga that has killed them. I am not to be blamed a bit in this, O mother. You need not be sensitive in this. There is no remedy for what will inevitably come to pass. Therefore, you do not need to be excessively sorry for the death of your son. You must know that jivas enjoy pleasures and pain as the results of their own karma. O mother, I am your servant. You are entitled to the same respect and worship as Manorama, my own mother. There is no difference whatsoever between you and her. O mother, one must bear the effects of one's karma, good or bad. Therefore, when pleasure or pain arises, you should not be overly gladdened or sorrowed. When pain arises, more pain is said to be conceived, and when pleasure arises, more pleasure is seen. But the learned say that the man ought not to subject himself to excessive pleasure or pain. O mother, this whole world is under fate, destiny. Nothing of it is yours. Therefore, the intelligent person ought not to grieve their hearts at any time with sorrow. As the wooden dolls dance in the stage as danced by the actor, so the individual souls here work as the results of their past karmas. There is no doubt in this. O mother, I know the effects of one's own karma must have to be borne. It is on that account that I never felt sorrow in my exile in the forest. You are quite aware that my mother's father was killed here, and my mother, becoming very much afraid and sorrowful, took me and escaped to the forest. The robbers robbed us of everything save our clothes on our bodies. I was then very young. My mother was without any shelter. She carried me with this minister Vidala and my helpless nurse to the hermitage of the Muni Bharadvaja. There the kind hermit and his wife and the other wives of the hermits protected our lives in that forest with the roots and fruits that can be obtained there in the forest. Thus our time passed. Mother, I have felt no pain then, nor do I feel any pleasure at present, when wealth is flowing unto me. What more to say? I have no feeling of jealousy or envy whatsoever in my mind. O mother, rather it is better in my eyes to subsist on roots and fruits than to enjoy kingdoms. For the kings go to hell, but the ascetics living on roots and fruits never meet with that results. The wise should undoubtedly practice Dharma and control their passions, and thus save themselves from being led into hell. O mother, the human birth in this auspicious place is seldom obtained. The enjoyments in eating and drinking are possible in every womb, but it is highly incumbent on us, when we have got the privilege of this human birth, to earn Dharma, leading to the heavens and salvation, which can be very rarely attained even in being born in other wombs. When Sudarsana had told thus, Leelavati became very abashed, and she cast aside the sorrow for the death of her son and told him with tears in her eyes, O my son Sudarsana, I am very much guilty on account of my father Yudhishthira killing your mother's father and taking hold of the sovereignty of this kingdom. I could not then hinder my father and son. Whatever unlawful, evil, and cruel deeds were then committed, all were done by my father Yudhishthira. Therefore, my child, I am not to be made guilty in any way in these doings, Both my father and son were killed out of wickedness of their own actions. How can you account for those wicked things, child? I am not expressing sorrow at the death of my son. I have been pained by his doings. O noble souled one, you are my son. Manorama is my sister, child. I am not at all offended with you, nor I the least sorry for your obtaining the kingdom, child. You are very fortunate, therefore you have obtained by the grace of Bhagavati the kingdom without any enemies. Now rule your subjects according to the prescribed rules of Dharma. O king, the king Sudarsana heard Leelavati and bowed down at her feet. Then he went to the beautiful palace where Manorama had previously gone and began to live there. Inviting the ministers and the astrologers, he asked them what was the auspicious day and the auspicious moment that he can establish Durga Devi on a beautiful golden throne, and he would worship her. O ministers, first I will install on the throne the Devi, the awarder of the four main objects of human pursuits, virtue, wealth, enjoyments, and final beatitude. And then I will govern my kingdom like the kings Sri Ramachandra and others. All the people of the city of Ayodhya ought also to worship this auspicious Shakti, the highest energy, the giver of all desires and cities, and that is respected and adored by all. The ministers, on hearing his words, had a beautiful palace built by the engineers, artists, and workmen, and proclaimed in the city the king's proclamation. Then the king Sudarsana had an image of the Devi nicely built and got that installed with the help of the pundits first in the Vedas on an auspicious day and at an auspicious moment. The intelligent king performed the worship and fire ceremony according to the prescribed rules, and thus finally settled the ceremony of the invocation of the Devi into the new image and established it as an image in the temple. There the soundings of the various drums and other musical instruments, the chanting the Vedic mantras, and the sweet music were heard, and various sorts of festivities and rejoicing were celebrated, thus completing the installation ceremony of the Durga Devi by the Brahmins. First in the Vedas, the king, Sudarsana, duly worshipped the image in various ways. Thus gaining his father's kingdom and worshipping the Devi, he and the Devi became celebrated throughout the kingdom. The religious, large-hearted Sudarsana, on gaining kingdom, brought all the other princes under his control by the sheer force of his religious character. The subjects became happy and got honored at the reign of Sudarsana, as they got before in the reigns of Ramachandra and Raghu. The virtues of all the citizens under Sudarsana shone complete with all of its four padas, and there remained none in the world irreligious. In village after village, the chief townsmen began to build temples, worship the goddess there with all their jolliness, and then everywhere in the Kosala kingdom spread the Devi worship. On the other hand, the king Sabahu established the Murti of the Mother in Benares and had temples built and worshipped there the Devi. The inhabitants of Kashi became then filled with devotion and intense love toward the Devi and duly worshipped her as they used to do to Shiva in the temple of Vishwanath. Thus the Durga Devi became very widely celebrated in this world, O king. Thus in different countries the devotion began to increase toward the goddess. The Devi Bhagavati Bhavani became in every way an object to be worshipped and adored by all people and everywhere in all of India. The people began to recite slowly, meditate, and chant hymns as advocated by the Agamas, and constantly became deeply attached to the Divine Mother worship and began to be looked upon with the highest honor by others. O king, from that time all the people used to worship, perform fire ceremony, and sacrifice duly in honor of the Devi every Navratri. For the first 9 days of the bright half in the month of Ashvin and Chaitra. Thus ends the 25th chapter on the installation of the Devi in Ayodhya and Benares in the Mahapurana Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Vedavyasa. Om Namah Shivaya, Jai Mahamaya Ki Jai, Vishveshvari Mata Ki Jai, Hare Kandeshvari Mata Ki Jai.